And then I discovered I couldn't find the original card warp either. And I'd forgot that I had lent it out to someone and I just never got it back. So I was a bit down on that. And I spent a couple of years to try and find like replacements. At this point, I didn't care if they were signed or noted or that kind of stuff, or if they were signed to someone else, as long as it was just the original one. So a couple of versions of Cardboard popped up on eBay a couple of months back, and I thought, cool, I'll grab it. And then the seller sent me a message back and says, look, I've refunded you. And I was like, oh, did you not have them in stock anymore, or what's going on? So no, I've sent them out, but I've refunded you. You understand when it gets there. So the card warp arrived, and I opened it up, and it's like, to Alan, da-da-da-da. It was my version of it. So I had lent this thing out, and it had went around wherever it had went around. This dealer had found it, picked it up, and I've managed to find it again and try and buy it without knowing. And they sent me a note back just saying, I think this rightfully belongs to you. And they gave it back, which was real nice. So it was a couple of months later, Complete Walton Volume 2 pops up. And it says inscribed. The guy said he had 2 in stock, both inscribed to someone. And the picture showed one that was inscribed to Scott. That's fine. It'll do. As long as I replace that book, it's important to me. The book arrived and it opened up and it says to Alan. Now I know fine well, it wasn't this Alan, it wasn't me that this was signed to, because I've still got my Crayola penned version of it with my signature on it. But this was just signed to some other random Alan. So I've got a pristine copy of that now with my signature on it, which is great.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. We're joined on the Scottish Isles today with this gentleman. Now, believe it or not, this gentleman I've known since I was, I think, about 16. It was him and Liam Montier were the two magicians that I first spoke to. And I still perform one of his tricks even now. All of these years on, since I was 16 when I first learnt it, all the way to now, I still do that routine. He's an absolutely prolific creator at this point. If you haven't seen his stuff, he's so clever. Absolutely ingenious. I remember one of his tricks, which I loved way before vaping was a thing, was an excellent trick called Smoke, which is what he called it to begin with. He released it in small numbers first before taking it to a company. And that trick, because that technology was so new, that's how long ago this is, it was an absolute miracle when smoke appeared out of your mouth. Now, of course, it's not so amazing because we have vapes and everyone knows about it. But that's an absolute example of the way he thinks. He can just take things and turn them into absolute miracles. Whether it's card magic, whether it's visual magic, he'll put his hand to anything and always succeed. He's an absolute joy to have on the podcast. So, everybody, it is Mr. Alan Rorrison.
Thank you. I never quite know what to say after introductions like that, because I always feel like it kind of bigs me up a little bit too much, and then I'm just this little small Scottish guy from a small town. It's always kind of weird.
But it's all very true, and all of that praise is true. I mean, you've been in our industry now for so many years, and I remember your Fingers of Furies DVDs. They're the ones that I was referencing. On DVD 2, there's a trick called Joking, which is a sandwich routine, and that's a routine that I've done all of these years later. But even the tricks like you ploughing the card into your arm, so there's like a knife through arm routine, but with a playing card, and it looks so killer visual.
That was a stupid one, to be quite fair. I was cutting up cards for something else. I was building something else at the time, and I was looking at this card with a half moon kind of cut into it, just lying on the table and all the scraps. And at that point, I just thought, ooh, wait a minute, well that, because I remembered the old bar gag where you would rip a little tear into a bar mat and you can make it look like it had been flung and hit you in the nose. I thought, I wonder if that hold on to your arm in the same kind of way with that one there. That one kind of came together quite quick, to be fair, just because the gimmick was just a scrap that was already there, and then it was just a case of switching out that selected card with that one. It's quite easy. I won't lie, I still do that one now and again. The crazy thing with the Fingers of Fury projects, there's a lot of material in there that I still just do. At the time where I put it out, I stopped doing a lot of it. because I thought, right, much like a comedian would do, once like an ever special is out there, that material is burnt. Everyone knows it. There's no point in it anymore. It's lost its worth, kind of. And it wasn't until a couple of years after the release of it, I kind of realised that maybe I was a bit too hasty on that. And there's a lot of that material in there that's still good. And your standard everyday spectator or participant hasn't seen this. So I started doing my own material again, which was quite fun. I was saying this earlier on to you, that there was a routine that was on the Fingers of Fury DVDs. There was a routine on there, and I wanted to do it again, and there was a part I couldn't get. My brain wasn't remembering what solution I put in there to make that part work. And I had to go back and dig out the DVD. In this little room, I've got little DVD frames on my wall. It's like it looks like a picture frame, but you slide a DVD into it, you can hang it up. It's like a display piece. So I've got all my releases kind of like that in my room. I had to go take it off the wall and watch it. And I went through and obviously figured out what the trick was and got it all working. That was fine. But both my wife and I kind of turned to each other like, your accent was quite a bit thicker then, wasn't it? We had realised I might have softened up over the years. But yeah, the Fingers of Fury ones, thank you for that. The joking one is one I still use to this day as well. I think it's just because it's good to go out of a normal deck. It always comes in quite handy.
Now, because you've been in our industry for so long, you've obviously been absolutely surrounded by magic. And I know that you're a collector of magic just as much as I am and everyone else is. So how did you find putting your list together? I'm
very opinionated. It can be to my detriment at times, but I am very opinionated on things. The older I've got, once I kind of came out of my 30s, I've kind of realised that sometimes it's better just to sit back and keep that opinion to myself, and life goes a little bit easier. Not everything needs to be as abrasive as it is. But the list kind of fell together for me just because I've got such strong opinions on things. And even when the option of banishing something came up, it wasn't like I had to think about it. There was just like a little light bulb. It was like, there we go, we've got something for that. And then I swiftly realised that not everyone has done one and not everyone has thought the way I have on it. So thankfully, I can say with 100% guarantee that I won't feel bad for saying what I need to say. But you'll understand why when I say it. But yeah, the list came together quite quick. It's, again, thankfully, the opinionated nature of myself kind of helped. And now that I've been holding off a little bit, it's nice to have a platform to get some of it out. So thank you for being my therapist for the next short while.
Well, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, the idea is that we're about to send Alan to his very own desert island. When he's there, he's allowed to take 8 tricks, banish 1 item, take 1 book, and 1 non-magic item he uses for magic. Particulars like who's there, what's there, that sort of stuff, we do not mind. This island appears in Alan's imagination, so it can be whatever he wants it to be. It's basically the list of tricks that he could not live without if he had to perform them for forever more. With that being said, let's go to that little island and find out what Alan put in number 1. What did you put in your first spot?
This one was an absolute no-brainer. It's the Trivium. This is by myself, slightly egotistically, but it's not a new plot in any shape of it at all. It's literally a production of 3 coins and then a vanish of 3 coins one by one. So they appear one by one and they'll vanish one by one, right up at your fingertips, as the old magic books used to say. But it's, I think for me, the reason it's in my number 1 spot is much like a few items in this list, it's something I carry with me every single day. I decided when I was putting this together, my brain kind of realised that if it's something that I've been carrying with me for at least the past year, it needs to be on the list. There's just no way it can't be. So yeah, Trivium, it's just $3 appear at your fingertips and vanish, but there's a lot of sort of magic for the spectator, and that's a short space of time. And you can make it play really small for a small group, or just step back slightly because you're using dollar sizes to catch the light quite nice. so you can use it for a slightly bigger group. So Trivium's in there. I love it. Obviously, David Roth has got his version of it, and Josh J has a version of it out there too. I think what was his called? The name of it will hit me later on, but I'm not thinking on it. It was another try sort of name.
Triad coins?
Triad coin, there we go. He's got a good version of it out there too. The reason I like mine is the gimmick is slightly more controllable. And it just works nice. So it's been my go-to for the past maybe 2 years now. It's what if I got to a table, I used to walk up to a table with cards in my hand. Like when I was performing, say, "How you doing, folks? My name's Alan. I'm the magician for the evening. Can I borrow 2 minutes of your time?" And they would see that I had cards in my hand, so I was just ready to go. Now I don't have anything in my hands, and if they say, yeah, we want to see something, it's Trivium I go for first. So that is my number one go-to.
Now, you mentioned that you put it in your number one spot, but you said it almost like you've listed them from your most wanted to your not least wanted, but you've ranked them in order. Is that the case?
So I've got an EDC. Like most magicians, I'm obviously in the camp of you should always be able to do something if you have nothing on you. However, if you're going out of the house, just have something on you that you're comfortable with and you're happy with and you think looks good. It should always be something you take a bit of pride in performing, because that comes across, if you ask me. And it also comes across as something has been worked enough so it's a bit more scripted and feels a bit more professional. So it should always be something that you do a lot and is kind of one of your EDCs. So everything in the list kind of falls within that. Well, not everything. There's a few things in there that are not everyday carry for me, but all my everyday carry is in the list somewhere.
And you mentioned that you don't... it's one of those weird debates amongst table magicians and close-up magicians, is do you walk up to the table with a deck of cards? What's the reason for you changing to this coin trick? Is it just you prefer the coin trick? Is it because you don't think that people will respond to you as well with a deck of cards in your hand?
For me, there was a slight shift in how participants, or I'm trying to stop using the word spectators because they're not really just spectating. They most of the time they are taking part, and so I'm trying to shift to participant. But there's a definite shift in how they look at you. It used to be if you walked up with a pack of cards, they knew what they were getting. It is what it was, and you just got on with it. Then I noticed that people started to look at it was almost like Uncle Bob with a pack of cards walked up saying, "Hey, you want to see it?" And it's not that it felt cheap. It's just they were making a presupposition on what I was going to do before I'd done it, and I didn't like it. So if I've got no props ready to go, if I just walk up and go through my spiel and then say, "Look, I'm the magician, can I borrow 2 minutes of your time?" So when I'm asking if I can borrow 2 minutes of the time, I'm not saying I'm going to do a trick for you yet. I'm just making sure that you're willing to give me some of your time, because I get that time is the most expensive commodity on the planet. Making sure I get that first. And then once I've got that, I don't want to burst into something that's going to make them presuppose. I don't want to have them like pull out a deck of cards and have them think, "Oh, great, this again. The last 2 bars had this as well." I just want it to be something different. And up where I am and where I gig, there's not a lot of people just bursting out coin magic. Like, not like just bending a coin or borrowing a coin and bending that kind of thing, but proper Roth style coin magic, like making things appear at your fingertips and vanish and move and all that stuff. Not straight off the bat, most certainly. So it was a conscious decision for me, and I found that since shifting and moving these sort of card-related effects I do to later in the set, I'm getting a better response. So it's been a sort of weird 2 or 3 years. I've started shifting how I perform a lot. I never used to script a lot. Now I think everyone should do it. Don't get me wrong, jazzy now and again can be fun, but if you're pitching yourself as the magician, there should be an air of sort of professionalism in it. So I shifted to start to script everything and really scrutinising the sets I do and figuring out what should go where. I don't like to jazz with positionings anymore. I like to know what the set is before I do it, to try and build up to the sort of big clap at the end and all that jazz. Sorry, I like to sound of my own voice, and you already know this, mind you.
No, I think that's great. I think there's some really, really good points there. And it's kind of cool that we've come in at a coin trick, because it's not what I expected from you personally. I thought we were going to come in with a card trick. But it does lead us to number 2. So what did you put in your second spot?
Well, it's a card. No, it's not a card trick. I won't lie. So the second thing that I carry with me every single day, it's now known as the key. I designed up a linking key, basically. God, this must have been about 20 years ago. I'm getting old. So I designed up this linking key, and it was obviously along the lines of like Porper and everyone else that had done it. I just built in my own little parts that I wanted in there. And then Wayne Dobson had seen it as a look. I've got this routine. I used to use this version of the key, but I think this one would work better. Would you mind if I want to put the routine out again? Can we use your design for the key? And obviously with Mike and Wayne, I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. I was never going to release it. If you guys can, for me, it was too similar to something that had already been out. However, Wayne had already had something similar that was out. So for him to release it, that's absolutely fine. It was just a slight derivative of his work. The key has changed a little bit since then, but it is the key. It's basically you take your key off your keyring. You can show it, you can let them inspect it, and all this sort of usual sort of things that magicians would do. You would then borrow their keychain, and then you would link it on to their keychain just by tapping it on it, and it's on there. And then you can drop their keys back off of it, and then drop the key into their hands, and everything can be inspected. At least that's how I perform it. We used it on the Dynamo show as well, and we used a set of headphones for it, which became quite a popular presentation after he'd done that. But that linking key, it lives in the same little pants pocket, or trouser pocket, I should say, over here. You can tell I've been speaking to Americans too much. On my jeans, it's a little tiny pocket that no one knows what to do with. I put Trivium in there and the keys. That's what live in there. And those two things I like having in that spot so much. Any pair of trousers I've got, on the inside of the brief, I have them put a little pocket there as well, on the inside of the pocket, just so I know where I'm going for that thing, and nothing I need to do changes. But yeah, that key, just because it's so versatile, you can link it to stuff, you can have stuff pass through it, like you can make it pass through a finger ring and all that stuff if you use Wayne Dobson's old routine, which is phenomenal. You can do a bite and restore key style thing with it. It's just a nice little versatile thing that lends itself to a few different styles of routine, so it needs to be in there. They're a bit of a pain to make, but they're great.
I remember seeing this for the first time years ago, and seeing the construction in particular of the gimmick. Now, obviously, we're not going to talk method here, but when you see how you hid everything and how everything was integrated into the design of the key, I think I had just as much appreciation for that as the trick itself. It's such a cleverly constructed prop.
Thank you. It's one I take a bit of pride in. It's much like any of the sort of key gimmicks, the coin gimmicks I make as well. In fact, maybe not the coin ones so much now that everyone's moving away from physical money. But definitely back then, you had to make a coin gimmick or a key gimmick look as good as it possibly could, purely because this is something people unconsciously look at every single day. And whether we like it or not, if there's something even slightly off about it, it's like the uncanny valley thing you get in CGI where a face doesn't look quite right. It's a face, but it doesn't look quite right. I think the same thing happens with magic props. So if it's a coin or a key or something that people handle regularly, even if it's slightly off or just slightly out of the ordinary, their brain picks up on it. And once their brain picks up on it, anything you're doing just goes out the window. So I took a bit of time in making sure that thing looked right, and making sure I had the right key, and making sure it would be one that would pass in most countries and all that kind of fun stuff. But I'm a bit of a geek. I love the research side of things. Like the room I'm in just now is like my practice space and my workspace. So Like my 3D printers and stuff are here, my little lathe is here, like everything I like is around about here, so I can try and make things look as good as they can. But yeah, so the key has just been in there because it is so versatile and it looks as it should. And in the retaining, it's obviously all inspectable, thankfully.
And we've gone for another very organic thing. We've gone from coins, into keys. So we're looking at quite an organic set so far. So we'll see if that changes with number 3. What did you put in your third spot?
Oh, so this is where we break the chain and it is a card trick. I'm getting on. Of course, it's not a card trick. The third position for me is my wallet. A lot of people might not realise that you get 2 types of magicians. You get magicians that are into wallets and have drawers full of them, and you get magicians that just don't get the fuss. I used to be one of the ones that had a drawer full of them. A wallet came out, didn't matter what it done, I bought it. For anyone that's sort of non-magic-y listening out there, for a magician, if you find a wallet that helps you make a card vanish and appear in your wallet, or you can have wallets that will help you view things easier without giving too much away. There's a whole plethora of different wallets that do a bunch of different things, and some that claim to do them all, and none of them quite do it quite right. But the wallet I have is I'm going to dig it in my pocket so I can roughly go through everything that's on it. I love this thing. And it is an old style wallet. It's like a 3-fold wallet. I know you guys can't see it, but so this is the Cerberus wallet. Any of you magic people out there, if you want one, I think you can still pick them up in most magic stores. It is the Cerberus wallet. I think it was Magic World that initially put it out. I went away from it for a while. I went for the Orphic wallet for a bit, which I still quite like, which is by the 1914. And I always end up going back to the Cerberus wallet because it'll allow me to do a cards wallet, it'll allow me to do a peek. It's got an out to lunch built in there. It's also got like an indexing system where I've got a couple of things built in. And I may have found a cheat. I'll need to discuss if this is allowed. On the island, is it my wallet as is with everything in it? And does everything that's in this wallet count as still this one item?
So,
because
regular listeners know exactly what this means.
I have other tricks within here. So
regular listeners know that if you're going to take a wallet, then the devil's advocate comes out. Because the devil's advocate is going to restrict you down to just one thing with that wallet. So that wallet is only allowed for one purpose. So the other tricks that you have in it become obsolete because you're only allowed to use one routine. So with your wallet, if you were only to perform one of the routines, which routine would it be and why?
With this wallet, I like the idea of they can sign or not sign, they can write a word or a number or a name or whatever, and you stick it inside your wallet. You close up your wallet nice and clean and you place it in their hands. Just in that action, you know what the word is or whatever information's on there or whatever the drawing is. Again, I'm a bit of a wallet snob, considering I make my own leather goods as well. But the Cerberus wallet is, if you ask me, the best one out there just now, and it has been since its release. It's got to be over 10 years now. I love the thing. Yeah, so the peak within the wallet is what I would use on that side.
And without giving any method away, because once again, we don't want to go into methods, but most peak wallets will function different ways. So what about your particular one makes it more impactful for you? Without
them knowing it, you're looking at everything they've written on that card. For you, it's a 3-fold wallet. So you open up the wallet, and it's not bifold, it's trifold, right? So when you put your information in there and you fold this back up, for them, it makes it appear like it's way deep within the wallet. There's no way you can get to it. And then you can show it all the way around. But in the act of closing this up, I can see everything. Like, everything is just here. So for Jamie on camera, It's just there. You can't miss it. That's why I like it. It's why I like Schlick as well. There's no messing about. You've got a clear view of what that is. There's no trying to peek through a folded billet and all that kind of stuff. I get there's guys out there that are really good at that. I'm just not, and I don't want to be fiddling around with a billet that's folded up and trying to get a double peek in there and all that stuff. Once the information's in there, I can close up the wallet, and as I close it up, I get a good, clear view of what it is. And then even if I miss that, I then get a reasoning to go back into the wallet, take out another business card from another spot in the wallet for where it's held at the out of lunch part. So I can write down what I think their word is, and as I'm doing that, I can get a second peek. So it gives you an out if you forget what the word was or just didn't quite get a good read or that kind of thing as well. And it's just a good looking wallet as well. Ages well. It's made of nice leather. So
nice. Well, again, we're keeping with the organic nature of your list so far, and it brings us to number 4. So what did you put in your 4th spot?
We're trying to break the chain. There is no cards in 4th slot. Am I annoying you yet? I think I might be. So in the 4th slot, there's an Akito box, which is not something that I think a lot of people who know my material and my work, not a lot of people would have thought Rorrison's going to put an Akito box in there, but it needs to be there. Reasoning being is I've written a one-man show, and this routine that I use, even in close-up, is from that show. And it flows nice. Like, for anyone that's listening, an Akito box is just a nice little brass box. You put 4 coins inside there. You put the lid on, you tap it, and a coin falls through the bottom. And you can make that happen one by one. There's also a bunch of other effects that you can do with it. But coins go in and they fall through. And this is usually something I'll do off the back of Trivium. So it works as like a little flowing set. But again, it's a little brass box that you can just throw into your case. It can bounce about in the bottom there. You don't have to mummy this thing. It will take a beating. And I'm one of those people that either thinks if you're going to have like a brass prop, like an Akito box or a Boston box or that kind of thing, it either needs to be quite well polished, which is the way I'm keeping this one for the show just now, or beat up to an inch of its life. It needs to look used. So it either needs to look kept or used. It can't be sort of mid-ground, just me being a bit snobby. But yeah, I love the thing, and it's the reason I'm liking it so much just now is I have some audience participation with it, and it's flying well. And the reason I never used to use them is because an Akito box is an Akito box. It's a little brass cylindrical box. It doesn't look like anything we have in the world just now. It looks like a magic prop, and I thought people would call on that. But by the time I've done Trivium and they understand it's magic, the brain kind of relaxes slightly. And then once I ring this in and just see, look, it's a little box. Here, pop the coins in there for me. It then flows nice, and people don't question it anymore. So I'm now looking at some of the sort of older gimmicks out there and just trying to apply sort of my style of thinking to it.
A keto box is something that we've not had a huge amount of. And I know that there's... I mean, Bluther Magic recently brought out the deluxe box set, which basically has one of everything in it. It's great. It's an amazing set. But if someone wants to get into the Akito box or wants to start learning, where did you start learning your routines from?
So I'm a bit of a funny one with it. Obviously, I've been doing magic now since I was 9, and I'm now 42. The Akito box, even back then, was one of the first things you got, because these are a prop. In fact, much like anything in magic, you'll be able to find really cheap versions of it that you can get just to buy like a kid, just to test the waters to see if they're going to like magic. But then you can go all the way up and buy really nice ones. Where obviously you're not going to buy one of these real nice ones if you haven't worked your way up from the little cheap ones. So the initial routine that I had was Joker Magic. Joker Magic Ink. Remember the tricks you used to buy, and it's like a fold-out sheet of photocopy paper, and that was your instructions. And they were very obviously typed up on a typewriter and the image drawn at the top. So it was initially that I used. And then I played with little parts here and there over the years. But a couple of years back, I saw Terry from the Oracle, who is just a phenomenal coin worker, one of the best coin magicians I've ever seen. I'm at a weird point with him. I'd probably say he surpasses Roth, and I don't say that statement lightly. David Roth, for any non-magicians, is a sort of prolific coin magician, but Terry's phenomenal. So I saw him do some stuff in a keto box, and I thought, I think this could play well within the new show I'm doing. Not his routine, obviously. I'll go and learn my own. But to answer your question, sorry, again, I like the sound of my own voice. The Okito box I'm using is Lost Art Magic's Okito box. It's been designed a little tad different. The difference in it wouldn't make sense to a normal participant, but for something that we do in the routine, it's a must and needs to be sort of changed. The lid's slightly shallower. And I use their routine's good that you get with the Lost Art Okito box, but good luck finding them now. I don't think the company's going anymore. So if you can find one secondhand, go for it. They're great. And the routine you get in there is good. It's a nice flowing routine with phases, and it look very fair. Like there's a point in there where you drop the coin in the box, or you let them do it. You put the lid in the box, you let them hear it in there, and then when you drop it down on the table, the lid falls off and the coin's just gone. Like this, the Lost Art routine is beautiful. So if you're looking for one, if you can find that second hand, go for that.
Well, that's a great choice, and it's a slight deviation because we do have a magic prop in there. So it's slightly less organic, but I know we keep referencing it. Go back to listen to Andy Nyman's episode where he talks about magicians having props and why maybe we think too much about trying to justify stuff and not just being the magician that has a magical prop. It's a really great point. But it does lead us to number 5. So what did you put in your 5th spot?
Number 5 is a pack of cards. Woohoo! So this is for obvious reasons. We weren't going to get through this episode without there being a pack of cards in there. Considering the amount of card magic that I've put out, the amount of card magic I've consumed, it needs to be in there. Now we could get into the snobbery of what pack of cards we use, and in this way we could really annoy a bunch of magicians. And coming from someone that has had their own custom deck of cards out, I mean, that's the ones I use. If you can hear me sitting riffling just now, that's what I'm using. If I'm gigging, I've got a very particular card I like to use. And they're called bikes. Don't care if they're blue, don't care if they're red, just bikes. And the reasoning being is a lot of magicians fall into the trap of thinking these 52 little objects hold a bunch of power in the spectator's eyes. So I need to use the very best I can get, the best paper, the best pressing, the best printing. For a spectator, a playing card is a piece of paper with a drawing on it. This is something that if you're in the house and their table's wobbly, they'll jam some of them under that table to fix it. So if I'm doing magic with them and I'm out in the public, I want to be the same. I don't want to be treating these any different. Like, I don't want to be worrying about a dry spot on the table. Sure, if I'm using doing a routine and I need to deal with the table, I'll wipe a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about if a little spot of water gets on there and the card warps. I'll just trash that deck and pull out a new one. And that's why I like bikes, because even though they are getting a bit more expensive now, they're still relatively cheap compared to some of the designer decks out there. So I love bikes. The next in line on that one in my little rant will be the Phoenix cards, and it's for the same reasoning. They're a standard Phoenix deck are cheap enough. You don't have to baby them too much. You can get different size pips, which comes in quite handy. And with the Phoenix decks, I'm going to maybe break a rule here. You can get a normal Phoenix deck and a marked Phoenix deck for roughly the same price, which doesn't happen with any other company as far as I'm aware. If there's extra work put into them, most companies will put the price up. Maybe rightly so, but I like that Christian and the guys over at Card Shark have She said, no, it's still a pack of cards. The print process is still the same. Here you go. Have it. And sometimes it's nice to have a deck with some marks on there. I don't use them often, but if there's markings on there, there's a few routines that I will use that the marks will facilitate with and help. But yeah, deck of cards, you can't not have them in there. You can do turn restoreds, locations, card to pockets. There's just a wealth of material out there that everyone can choose from. Even a little card and arm, which you can make on the fly if you get a neat tear. In fact, one of my favourite tricks is Roy Walton's card warp. So much so that I've got an image, like a cartoon image of the cards in the card warp position, tattooed in the back of my calf. Card warp is where you take one card and you fold it lengthways. You take another card and fold it widthways. And as you pass one card through the other, it will flip over, so you'll see the back and the face of it at the same time. It's a gorgeous routine by Roy Walton, and being one of sort of Roy Walton's assistants, I couldn't not. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, playing cards, I love them. I think most magicians do. Even the hardcore mentalists that say I don't use props, I purely mind read, will mess around with cards. I don't think you'll ever find a magician that hasn't messed with cards at some point, and it'll be a great disservice not to have them on the list.
Well, everyone knows what's about to happen. I need to get a sound effect for this part, really, of the podcast. The devil has arrived.
I could have. Oh, the devil. Again? I can only do one card trick. Is that what it is?
Because you picked a generic deck of cards, you're only allowed one card trick with that deck of cards. So what would the one trick be if you could only do one trick for forevermore?
Right, we need to play another devil's advocate noise then, because I'm going to throw one back at you. Just to be annoying, the ambitious card. However, my ambitious card has many phases. Some where the card will jump to my pocket. Some where I pass that card through the other and it warps as it goes, like card warp. It's going to be the longest, most boring, ambitious card by the time you get to the end of it. But all the tricks can be in there. In fact, I could start halfway through my ambitious card and maybe end a bit early. Like just one phase. No, I'm kidding on. I think if there was going to be one trick. So I do a trick where you have a deck shuffled and there's a joker face up on the table. They select a card, or you just let them see a card and you drop it back into the deck. And then you take the joker and you place it down next to it and you just flick the card from the table into the side of the pack. So the joker's face up in the face down deck. So once you square it in and spread, you take the card that's right next to it and that card and turn them over and it's their card. And then you can quite nicely just pop the joker in front of them, place your card on top and say, my favourite card is 6 of diamonds, why don't you give it a try? And you let them flick it on in, pop it in, you spread out and it's a 6 of diamonds. And you can just keep that going over and over and over if you wanted to. That's my favourite routine just now. With a normal deck, if it was a gimmick deck, there's something else that I'm doing. But with a normal deck, that's the thing that I'm doing most just now. And because of the show I'm doing, I'm focusing quite heavily on routines and moments that put the onus on the participant to do the work. So it makes them feel like you're just sort of spectating on them doing the magic. So I like sort of putting it in their hands, and this one lets you demonstrate it and lets them show that you are the magician and you can do it, but it also lets them feel the sort of power of it as well, which is quite good.
Okay, well, we'll let you off then. We'll let you off.
We need to name that one, actually. What do we name it? Go for it. Simply Flip or Flip?
I would do Simply Flip, because it sounds like no effort needs to be put in by the spectator, but they still end up with a miracle.
So you're using Flip as a replacement. I get it. Okay, right. So yeah, that's what we'll use then. Simply Flip is it. That's what its name is from now on.
There you go. That's the first trick we've named on the podcast since it started. So there we go.
That's one of my little weird gripes in this sort of magic community. You'll do a routine and someone can go, oh yeah, what's that called? I don't know. I made it up last week on a plane. I don't name everything. Like, see, it's when you see a list of tricks or a DVD or a lecture or that kind of thing, and they've all got the little names there so people know what they are. People will come up and go, oh yeah, so that's Skadoodle trick. It's amazing. I don't know what you're talking about. either I made up the name on the spot just so it had a name for the thing. Because I just call it the card gets thrown in thingy. I think most magicians are the same that release stuff. But we don't name tricks mostly. I don't know many people that do. Unless it's like a big piece in your show, then it tends to be named after that part of your show.
Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you about Alakazam Unlimited. This is the best streaming platform in the world, I'm telling you now. With Alakazam Unlimited, you get access to over 150 magic routines. This is video performances and explanations. We have card magic, coin magic, kids magic, rope magic, mentalism, stage, parlor, impromptu. We've got you covered. All of this for the low price of just £4.99 a month. And you can cancel at any time. Perfect if you've got commitment issues. Yes, I'm talking to you. Guys, you are going to absolutely love it. If you haven't joined the platform already, what the heck are you doing? Alakazam Unlimited is a streaming platform that you need to be a part of. Not only that, there is also exclusive content only available on the platform. Check it out now, alakazam.co.uk. Cheers.
Well, that brings us to number 6. So what did you put in your 6th spot?
My watch. Going back to the organics. So there's a lot of watch magic out there. There's a lot of routines that you can do with a standard watch where you can have the spectator wind on through and then land at a specific time. There's some of the watch can be face down on the table and they can name a time. And then when you lift up your watch, that's the time you set. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with it, and I've recently got into I've recently got into watch building as a hobby. I have ADHD. I chronically collect hobbies. I do apologise. So there's a couple of gimmicks out there that are slightly electronic that help you manipulate a watch, I think is the best way to put it. But none of those watches really look great. They don't look like any other sort of watches that are out there. So I decided to build one, basically. So I've got a couple now. This is one that is just a Speedmaster, but it does extra stuff for Magic. So this one will let me do time predictions and that kind of thing. I will never leave the house without a watch on. So I thought there's no point in me having this on me if it doesn't do any magic, if I'm going to have it on me at all times. So it does that, and I'm also working on doing a linking thing with the strap. Because it's a bracelet style strap where there's no gap in it, I'm working out a way to have things link onto it.
So the reason that you created your own version of a magic watch, was that because you're unsatisfied with what's out there at the moment already? Because there's quite a few brands nowadays that make special watches.
There is. By all means, there absolutely is. There's a slight rant again here, I guess. There's a lot of magic companies out there making these specific watches that do specific things, and not all of them. Some of them are just rebranding movements that are already out there, but not offering support for them. Like there was a company, I won't say the names, I don't want to put anyone on blast. I'm quite friendly with a couple of them. I get why it happened, but there was a company that became massive in that sort of field. They were the watch to have. Now they've vanished. You can't get support for the watch if you spent money on that very expensive watch. So what I've done is, the movement that's in mind is a high street brand's movement that does the same thing. And I just built it into a nicer sort of watch case that suits my style more. But the ones that are on the market just now, magicians aren't watch designers. There's very few of us that mess around in this kind of field. A lot of magicians aren't really design engineers either, whether we like it or not. So designing a good-looking watch and understanding what goes and what looks nice aesthetically is not something that they're very good at in that aspect. So yeah, I built my own because of that. The ones that were out there just were a bit lacking for what I wanted. And to be absolutely honest, since Neil Sturton has got me into watch building, I became a bit of a snob. to be quite honest with it, I became a bit of a watch snob. I'll never wear a smartwatch again. If I need to track my fitness and that kind of stuff, I'll put a My Band on my other wrist. But my watch is my watch, and that's the first thing it needs to do. It needs to be a good watch. If I can get a magic feature built in, great. But yeah, just because I became a bit of a snob with it, the stuff that was out there was just a little bit lacking for what I wanted. Not saying there's not good watches out there in the magic sort of field. They're just not for me. Very diplomatic answer.
It was a very diplomatic answer. Well done. But it does bring us into the tail end of your 8. So you've got 2 more spots left. What did you put in your 7th position?
A Rubik's Cube. And again, this is another sort of a funny one for me, because it's not one that I thought would have been. If you'd asked me these same questions 2 years ago, a Rubik's Cube would have been nowhere near this list. However, no, in fact, more than 2 years ago now, during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, the first time I got COVID, I was quite bad with it. I was bedbound, basically, and I had nothing to do, just sitting there in bed. So I thought, right, I'm going to learn how to solve one of these finally, like properly. I've faked doing it for years. Let's just learn how to solve it. So now I've got a sort of nice little base. I've been able to solve it within about the 2 minutes 30 mark, which I found, if you're not trying to be like a super kid at it, I found that the sort of 2 minute to 2 minute 30 mark is still quite impressive for a normal punter or a spectator. And I don't want to be like Tom, who is just freaking phenomenal with these things. Like, if you ever get a chance to see his act, go see it. It's Nerd Cubed, I think he's calling it now. Tom Crosby's set. He's just phenomenal with them. He's built up a whole act on them, and I don't think anyone's going to compete with that. But just with a normal cube, if you know some simple quick solves and how to do a normal solve, there's a lot of play you can get in there with a spectator. And again, it's one of those things that everyone knows, everyone's seen. Most people still to this day will probably still have a Rubik's Cube somewhere in a bottom drawer, still mixed up with the stickers half peeled off and all of that kind of fun thing. And again, if you wanted to, in the magic scope of things, there's other versions out there just now that make it easier for you if you don't know how to solve it. I'll try and leave that as vague as I can, because that might be some information that we don't want out there. There's other ways to make it a bit easier. However, just a normal Rubik's Cube. And again, if I ever get bored, because, again, diagnosed ADHD, I like to stim a lot. I found just sitting messing with a cube is it's just like a fidget thing. It's phenomenal for that too. So it'll facilitate in that side as well. But yeah, a Rubik's Cube, I never not have one too far off. There's always one kicking about somewhere. And he says as he picks one up, I can have another 4 in sight. And the good thing with cubes now as well, they're so cheap now. You can buy, you'll get some for like £2-3 on Amazon that are decent enough to perform with. And then if you're doing magic at a table with one, if it's a kid there, you can just give it to the kid and leave. Like it can be a little giveaway to keep that kid happy at the table. And that's why I've bought a bunch of them. So yeah, a Rubik's Cube. I never thought it would be on my list. I never thought I would see it. But because of Tom Crosby, it's absolutely in there. I see the error of my ways, and I now have one in my bag at all times.
Well, I completely agree. I think Cube Magic is superb, and I love that there's been such a massive... I mean, arguably it was Stephen Brundage back on America's Got Talent, which really made magicians go, wow, there's something in this, and the reaction that he got, and then of course his project, which was Cubed, that just literally set the world on fire, the magic world on fire with Rubik's Cube magic. And I think that a lot of magicians think that it's not within their grasp to learn a Rubik's Cube, but it's just memorizing steps. It's actually a lot easier than people think.
Yeah, it's even doing a normal solve. As I said, if I have a really, really good day, I can get it down to about a minute, maybe a minute 30. But that's me on like I've got up. I've had my Weetabix. I'm tanned. I'm chilled. I'm ready to go. But as I said before, I think about the sort of 2 minute 30 mark with a little bit of byplay with people. It's perfect. People still find that impressive, and they find just solving it better than most tricks that I have seen done with it, apart from Tom. And I think you're right on the Stephen Brundage thing as well. With the drama on that one aside, I think most people would need to agree that he was the one that sort of brought it to the sort of public forefront for what it is. But I think Tom has taken that sort of mantle from him and boosted it through the roof. There's a routine that Tom does in the show. I won't say what the routine is because I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but it's basically a cube solve. And it's done under the most impossible conditions. And it's one of those ones where I think I know how he does it. Right? There's most magicians, we kind of know a chunk of a lot of stuff from what other people are doing. However, I don't want to ask him or I don't want to talk to him about it because I don't want to know if that's right. I like the idea that there's going to be something in there that I've not quite got, and it's still getting me. Do you know what I mean? It's such a gorgeous routine. I love it. So yeah, cubes are great. It's a puzzly thing you can just play with as well if you want to. There's a bunch of magic you can do. I recommend everyone has one with them.
And I would still put that under the organic bracket because I do think it's still something that lives in the real world as an organic object. I don't think it necessarily is associated with magic and magicians specifically. So I still think that would come under an organic thing. But it does lead us to number 8. So this is your final thing. Now, people playing Alan Rorrison Bingo, do we think another organic prop? What do we think it's going to be? I think that this might be a curveball item. I think this may be a bit different.
After this one, do I still have the non-magic related item as well?
You do still have the non-magic item, which you could have taken your Rubik's Cube, technically, in that position.
Nah. I was trying to figure out if the thing I'm going to put in there would have to put in here, or if I can use what I want here, and then that's a separate item. So the final one, and the sort of magic-y side or trick side, is a ring of the PK variety. So a PK ring, for again any sort of non-magic-y kind of people out there, is a ring that will assist in doing a bunch of magic. It'll allow you to do vanishes, productions of coins or small objects or that kind of thing. There's a whole there's been a couple of projects put out there that go over some routines with a PK ring, and all of them have been slightly lackluster. At some point, I'm going to sit down and I think it'll be a book. I'm going to write down a bunch of the routines that I've got with this thing. I think it's a little under 100 different routines with a PK ring. I love the thing. And it's one of the things I really never leave the house without. If I don't have a PK ring with me, I have a thing that I have made called a stinger, which turns a normal ring into a PK ring, if that makes sense, and allow me to do the same routine. I'll have that on me, one of the two, because it's just such a versatile little prop. It's underutilized, man, I'm telling you.
Well, I'm going to be devil's advocate with it. I'm going to be devil's advocate here and say, because it is something that can be used as a utility item, if you could do one routine, so if people were going out there and they picked up this item and they were going to do one routine, what would you suggest they do?
So I think a lot of people would think that I would say my Matrix, but there's a different story on that I can't tell here, because on the show that's not what was used. There was a different reason why I had to choose yield on that one, unfortunately, but I guess it could be. Moving things PK sort of wise, like taking a fork or something and placing on top of like a bottle and having it spin or move or that kind of thing. I think doing that kind of thing with it, if I could only do one thing, it would be that. Purely because of the impact of it. Because it means I don't need to worry about adding anything thread-wise to the list. Or that kind of stuff, because you could do something in a similar vein with that. Now, I mean, I could have added, I've got my own thread reel and a bunch of work with that. I could have added that to the list. But with the PK ring, for most of the routines that if you wanted to get the sort of same impact and style routine, you can do it with the ring as well. So that's why I would probably stick with that and the PK moving things.
Well, it's a great list. It's very, very organic. You know, we've gone from a coin trick, we've got a linking key, we've got your wallet there, we've got the deck of cards, you've got a watch, a Rubik's Cube, now we've got a ring. Obviously, the only non-magic, the non-organic prop there we have was the Akito box, but you're using that with an organic prop. So it's fair to say that a lot of your magic now is just organic in its process.
Oh, absolutely. Even with the Akito box as well, there are some Vaseline tins that you can get in like Poundland and that kind of thing, and use as an Akito box. If you wanted to have it be organic, you could use those. For the show I'm doing, I just like a little brass box because it ties in with the character I'm putting forward. But I've always been slightly organic in everything that I do. For me, before I started using that kind of thing, if I ever felt too much like something I would have saw on the TV in the 80s, like big bunches of flowers and appearing canes and that kind of thing, I don't dislike it. It just doesn't fit my style. I try to keep things as organic as possible, and if it's not, if I know it can't be as organic as I want it to be, I tend to kind of lean into it a little bit. It's going to look magic-y. It just needs to look magic-y. That just is what it is. So I try to lean into that slightly. So yeah, I tend to be more organic where I can be.
Well, that leads us into our brand new controversial item. So this is the banishment. What did you banish onto your island? Smoke
and smoke devices. So when vapes initially came out, obviously it was said before that I built a gimmick called smoke, which just allows you to produce a puff of smoke from your mouth seemingly out of nowhere. A lot of people don't know that back then I'd done some work for a company design-wise, designing a part of the atomizer that all those smaller ones used. So I was in the thick of that one. I kind of knew those were coming before most people did. And back then it was great. Now, do I still use smoke? You'll notice I still call it smoke because that is its name. I do. Now and again, I'll use it. However, it's very few and far between now because it just isn't as impressive anymore with how vapes came. It's something that people can piece together quite easily now, no matter what you do or how you routine it, unfortunately. Now, this is why I've also barreled in most other smoke devices. Like ones that are hidden elsewhere, because even though a participant doesn't know where it's coming from, they know what it is. They know that half the front row will be carrying something that can do it too, and that bothers me. Which is the reason why I'd quite happily just let it go. The other side of smoke as well is because the second name of it was just smoke, and I have a 6-year-old who is now going on to Google and all that kind of fun stuff. I don't want to get to a point in my daddy daycare career where I turn around and say, no, smoking's bad. And he goes, well, why? How? Hey, hold up here. How come I can find you all over the internet linked to a thing called smoke, with smoke coming out of your mouth? So I've got a responsibility now that I didn't have back then that I'm trying to negate as well. Yeah, smoke devices, the do and end all of it is, I think now most people know what they are. I think now most people have a sort of idea, albeit vague, of what it is and how it works. Don't think it's impressing most people anymore. And if people are really responding to it and overreacting to it, I think it's because they like you a bit more than the trick. They've bought into your character a bit more than the trick. I'm not saying they can't be used to good effect. It's just very hard to find a situation where the good effect would be.
It's an interesting one because, like I say, I remember that trick so vividly. I remember that you sent me one of your prototype ones. So this was one of the very, very early ones that you had before you sort of batch produced it. Then you batch produced it as Schmoke, and then obviously you had it sold through, I think it was Theory 11, wasn't it? Or was it Illusionist?
It was Theory 11, yeah. I've sold the rights to it to someone else. Someone approached me and says, look, I kind of want to do this. So how would you work it? I was like, we'll just buy the rights to it then. And he's like, sure. So anyone contacted me just now saying, can you maybe just, I know you don't sell them anymore, but can you make me up a wee sneaky one and send it? No, I don't have the rights anymore. I've sold the rights, so I can't. I'm allowed to make them for myself and one for me, and that is it, if I ever want to use it. But back then, these things just weren't known. at all. Like the initial prototype I sent you, the branding that was on the side of that unit was the company that I was doing R&D for. So I was getting it directly from them. I can't discredit what it is and what it was. It will still be used. It will still get a good reaction here and there, and I still do carry one with me. But where I used to use it every second table, now I'm using it maybe every second week, maybe every third week. Just because the situation needs to be absolutely perfect for me to know that's going to have an impact.
Well, we have banished all smoke devices onto your island. Now, that actually does you a little bit of a benefit, because when you're stuck on that island and you're trying to get help, your smoke signals are going to be tremendous.
It'll be great. It'll be like Lost, which I recently watched again. I binged the whole thing again just to see if I was too young to get the point. There's still no point to the ending of that show. It's still rubbish.
Well, that brings us to your book. So what did you put in your book position?
Complete Walton, Volume 1. I love this thing. Again, I'm one of Roy's boys, as they were called. There is so much good material in here that you can tell where I'm at, 'cause I still have the bookmark in here for something that I'm reading. There's so much good material in this book. If you only got one book on card magic, if you got this, you gave yourself a lifetime worth of material. Now, there's 3 volumes of this as well. I've chosen the first one, maybe slightly for the nostalgia in it, I should say, but just because there's still routines in here that I'll perform daily. It's a stunning book. So the Complete Walton Volume 1, if you can find a good copy of it. It has been sort of reprints. I would recommend trying to find one of the originals if you can. There's something about it. I don't know what it is. Like for me, old books have got a feel and a texture and a smell to them that I like. I don't know, it just turns my brain onto learning a bit more for some reason. If you can't get those, you can get the newer ones. But Complete Walton, Volume 1, if I can only choose one. If the Devil's Advocate would come in and let me take it as a set, I would take Volume 1, 2, and 3.
If you were to take one trick from the book, is there like a standout routine for you?
Yeah, KLF, the California trick. So there's a convention that happens up in Scotland every year in October time. I say convention, it's a magic day filled with talks. A casual day filled with talks is how they would brand it. It's Neil Sturton and Peter McCulloch that put it on. And Jack as well, of course. And it's named after this trick. Basically, it's a card location with dice is the easiest way to put it without exposing anything. A card's dice help you find a card in the most impossible way. And the reason I like it is there's just a lot of scope in it, to have a bit of byplay with your spectators and to script around it. Where the description has its routine in there, there's a lot of good and easy ways to add a story to it, which I like. I've said this in a few podcasts and stuff before, but Roy Walton literally did save my life, like absolutely. I was getting ready to go home one night and do a very silly thing, and when I went into the shop on the way back, Roy noticed there was something up, and he handed me, it was card warp at the time, he handed me a minute, come back next week and do it for me. I was like, all right, cool. And I went home and I just didn't think about the other thing, thankfully, and went and learned the routine and went back. He spent way too much time with me that day, just making sure that I was in a good spot before I left, so I didn't do something really stupid. So I came back, done card warp, it was all good. And then at that point, I was like, I want to learn more. I was like, so what do we have? And it's when I bought that book. It was the first book I bought from him. He signed it for me, which was nice. I went home and started learning a bunch of routines from that. So over the years, I bought all 3. And obviously 6 years ago I had a kid, and Spencer got to my initial copy of Card Warp and my initial copy of Complete Walton Volume 2 with pens and crayon before he knew the importance of like some books Daddy's got in his room and that kind of thing, and absolutely annihilated them. So I was sitting there, I was like, right, so the version of Card Warp that he's destroyed is fine, because that's the unsigned one. I had one that Roy had signed to me, and then this is that one. It's all fine. Although the Complete Walton is stuffed. And then I discovered I couldn't find the original card warp either. And I'd forgot that I had lent it out to someone and I just never got it back. So I was a bit down on that. And I spent a couple of years, all in all, up until 6 now, to try and find like replacements. At this point, I didn't care if they were signed or noted or that kind of stuff, or if they were signed to someone else, as long as it was just the original one. So a couple of versions of Cardboard popped up on eBay a couple of months back, and I thought, cool, I'll grab it. So I paid the money, sent it on over, and then the seller sent me a message back and says, look, I've refunded you. And I was like, oh, did you not have them in stock anymore, or what's going on? So no, I've sent them out, but I've refunded you. You'll understand when it gets there. So the card warp arrived, and I opened it up. And it's like, to Alan, da-da-da-da. It was my version of it. So I had lent this thing out, and it had went around wherever it had went around. This dealer had found it, picked it up. And I've managed to find it again and try and buy it without knowing. And they sent me a note back just saying, I think this rightfully belongs to you. And they gave it back, which was real nice. So it was a couple of months later, Complete Walton Volume 2 pops up. And it says inscribed. The guy said he had 2 in stock, both inscribed to someone. And the picture showed one that was inscribed to Scott. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, that's fine, it'll do. I don't care the name on it, as long as I replace that book, it's important to me. So I spent the money, and I think I paid just a little bit over the normal market value, as you would, but sentimental value, you just do that kind of stuff. The book arrived, and it opened up, and it says to Alan on it. Now, I know fine well it wasn't this Alan, it wasn't me that this was signed to, because I've still got my Crayola penned version of it with my signature on it. But this was just signed to some other random Alan. So I've got a pristine copy of that now with my signature on it, which is great. But yeah, so the card warp style thing, my initial copy that was signed to me, I gave out to someone, and then I bought another one at some point. And then the initial one came back. Like, you could not. I don't think I could explain the happiness you saw in my face when I opened that thing up. And I was quite happy that the dealer at the time as well was quite nice and realised and went, no, here, just take it. So no complaints. That was a little joyous thing I had a month or two back. I still have them. In fact, I still have the card warp, but where is it? Has a little note in there saying, no, this one's yours, with a little letter. It just says, no, I believe this is yours, so yeah, I think you should have this. So I can't complain. And he sent me another non-signed one as well, just so I've got a backup, which was quite nice. And if you want to know, I have that image. I know you can see this. I know you out there can't. It's just a version of card warp. It's a picture on the back of the manuscript. I've got that tattooed in the back of my leg.
Well, it means it was meant to be. It must have been meant to come back to you. It had to have been. So when it came in, my wife came in and she was like, oh, you found it? And I'm like, no. I was like, I bought one, remember? She's like, huh. I was like, yeah, it's found its way back. So yeah, serendipitous, I guess. It's never leaving this bookshelf again. It's just staying there. Real magic. There you go. That does bring us to your item. So what did you put in your non-magic item?
My phone. It's my phone. Come on now. My phone is a notepad and pen. I'm big into music. I've got headphones with me everywhere. I play a bunch of instruments. I need my music with me, so my phone does all of that. No devil's advocate can come out here. Shut your mouth. It does a bunch of magic stuff as well if I want it to. I'm stuck in a blimmin' island. I have a thing that has GPS on it now. Find me. Do you know what I mean? My phone. I never leave my house without my phone. Like 2 weeks back, I'm getting a bit passionate here because I've realised that how much of my life is on this thing. A couple of weeks back, in fact, ever since mobile phones became a thing, I've had pretty much one every second, third year since they were a thing, right? I have never smashed a screen on one of them until about 2 weeks ago. And it fell off my bedside table and just hit the brick of my laptop charger and just shattered it. And I was like, oh. And these phones nowadays, they're not cheap to replace the screens anymore. So I was like, do I replace this myself? Or do I try and find someone that can do it? And I panicked for a minute because I realised everything is on here. My bank cards, pictures of my kids that I will be able to back off. Like everything, my life is on this phone. A bunch of my magic stuff. I see kids, like I've got more of them. I have one kid, single. And thankfully, I found a guy locally, a guy called Ross Gillier, who was like, "Oh, I can get this sorted for you for tomorrow. I'll come pick it up now." Picked it up, came back, dropped it off, went, "This is the price," gave him money, and it was sorted. And I had it all running again. But my phone, I don't think I can live without it. If I just go from here to the shop to buy something and I feel that it's not in my left pocket, I need to go back. I can't just get to the shop, get one and pay with my card and come back. I need to go get my phone. I'm properly addicted to it. But for reasons I'd said, there's a bunch of magic stuff you can do with a phone as well. You can use it as a notepad and pen. You can watch your movies, and then you can listen to your music and all that good stuff with it. So a phone with a solar bank plugged onto it, just in case you don't have power, and I'm golden.
But it's a great list overall. Obviously, we've gone through it earlier on. We've gone from coins, keys, we've got the Akito bot, we've got cards, Rubik's Cubes, rings. Your banishment was smoke devices, your book was Complete Walton, and your item was your phone. Very organic, Alan.
There was a couple of close contenders. I won't go over what they were, but there were a couple of things that were like, maybe I should have this in there. Like in fact, I'll say one. My non-magic item was going to be a fountain pen, of all things. And I carry a fountain pen with me everywhere I go now. And it was one of Roy's things, actually. Anytime he would sign something or write something, in fact, the initial Devil's Playthings and the initial books, he hand wrote them in a fountain pen. And then they were typed up later on. Anytime Roy would sign something for you, it would be in his fountain pen. It was like a tradition of his. And his reasoning for it that he told me was, it takes a moment. Like a fountain pen is very unforgiving, so you need to understand your penmanship to make it look nice, where other pens are a bit more forgiving. However, it takes a minute. If you write something in fountain pen, you have to wait a minute or two for it to dry. And if you don't, it's just going to smear that signature away. So if you're important enough for a person to come up and ask for a signature, and they feel that they need to have your signature, it's only a minute or two, but it makes them earn it slightly. Like it means it's important to them. You know it's important because they're going to wait for that to dry and not to smudge it and keep it good, and they can't get water on it and all that kind of stuff. It adds a bit more importance to it. So I've been doing the same for a little bit now. I carry a fountain pen with me everywhere I go. My wife always loves, and she can always tell when I've refilled it because I come downstairs with ink everywhere. But yeah, that's became another sort of snobbery kind of thing.
Well, if people want to find out more about you and maybe get one of those signatures from you, where can they go?
You're not going to get a signature. No one wants my signature, let's face it. But the easiest place is alanrorrison.com. You can go there. You can find me there. I'm Alan Rorrison on most things. So on Instagram, it's at Alan Rorrison. On Facebook, it's at Alan Rorrison. I don't mess about with the branding on that side of things. It just is what it is. So you can go there on YouTube as well, at Alan Rorrison. You'll find me.
Thank you so much, Alan, for finally coming on here.
It's been my pleasure. Ever since you pitched this to me, I've been looking forward to it. And I think it's because the list came in my head so quick. I was like, no, I know what I want to say here. And I kind of knew the smoke would probably get the response that it did, and probably will from the listeners. Look, we've all got to grow up at some point, all right? And again, much to Jamie's delight, I am sure you have noticed as well that I have been very polite with my language because I'm usually slightly more colourful. I've just grown up a little bit. So, yeah, it's been my pleasure. Doing these kind of things is always something I enjoy.
Well, thank you again, and thank you all for listening. Don't forget, we do have Stranded with a Stranger, which is your chance to send in your list of 8 tricks. 1 banishment, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item. Send it to sales@alakazam.co.uk with the subject title, My Desert Island Tricks. That way it comes through to me. Of course, include a little bio and why you chose those tricks. With that being said, we will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.